without a clerk, which is one of the things we'll be talking about. So I guess I'll do the roll call. Ed Roby, I'm here.
I got to test it. Yes, Ed is here.
Frank Gillespie.
I'm here.
Denise Lustelo is on vacation. I know that. Stacy Martina.
Here.
Jerry Mills. I don't see him. Denise Rushing.
Here.
Jim Comstock.
Here.
Jeff Smith. Not here.
Jeff was not going to be here.
Okay. Martin Shield.
Present.
Jim Engel. Not here. Suzanne Lyons.
I'm here.
Okay. And John is here somewhere. John Benoit, our executive officer. Scott Brown, our legal counsel. And the position of clerk is vacant. And we need to find one. So if you know anybody. All right. Well, our first item is the election of our chair and vice chair for the upcoming fiscal year. And
Since we have people missing, does that mean the alternates would be voting?
yes, absolutely. That's what the alternates are for.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's why we appreciate you coming to the meetings on a regular basis so you can jump in.
Right, so
Thank
that
you, Martin.
you're current and up to speed.
Go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
Thank me too.
Yeah, Suzanne, thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to know if there are any nominations for the office of chair.
I'd like to nominate Ed Roby.
I will second that nomination.
I appreciate that. My only concern is, it's nice to give people a chance to do this role, and Stacy's the vice chair, she would be next in line.
I'm okay with that too.
Thank you. I'm up for re-election. I am going to run for my seat again, but maybe it would be better for you to keep out.
One more year? Okay.
That works.
Don't do it again.
No, I won't be here next time.
Okay. Okay, are there any other nominations?
Nope.
I hear the train a coming. Okay.
What about you, Jen?
Yeah, just escaped that one.
Not interested?
Well, at this point, I think we have a current chair, and who's been nominated, and I'm just fine with that.
Okay, well, are there any other nominations? No,
Well,
I don't-
I'd like to nominate Stacy.
Okay,
I would. I think, you know.
Thanks, Suzanne.
I would second that nomination, but we would also want to say, you're running for re-election. And I would feel confident based on the record that you do that.
Yeah.
But if you were not, we would just deal with it. We've done it before.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have,
I'm happy to withdraw.
Well, you know, and Ed, you've served well.
Yeah.
Would you like to continue serving, or would you like to see Stacy have the opportunity to serve?
it doesn't really matter to me, and in fact, I'd be happy to see Stacy be the chair. I'm not, attached to this particular job. Yes.
Chairman Roby,
Yes, sir.
is it possible to have the audio turned on? Because you're barely audible in the back of the room.
I don't know, do you know how to turn it on?
We don't know how. Martin
Somebody
might,
from the
Stacy might, someone from Lakeport.
Make sure your sliders are
forward. It's forward. Hello, test, test. Hello,
It doesn't appear to be.
anybody?
Oh, wait, there you go.
This is working.
Someone's thumping.
Can you hear me?
Give
Any
it.
better?
Everything on your guys towards you is on.
Hello?
Yeah, drumming's probably not appropriate. but-
It's working.
Okay. Hope that helps.
It's working.
I'll try to
White
be loud.
I've gotten a sense of rhythm.
Okay, well, we have nominations for a new chair, and I'm happy with that, actually. So, unless there's any other nominations, we'll close that, and I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of Stacy becoming our new chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
There is a
Congratulations.
training tab. You're on.
Not sure how that happened.
Paybacks are hard.
I'm not sure.
The gavel.
I have a question. I don't know whether this is for Scott or not. It seems to me that in the past, the new chair has taken over the following meeting, but does she take over now, or how does that work?
It's really up to you.
She's the chair.
You know, it's, you can either have it this meeting or make it effective at the next meeting. It's really up to you.
What's your pleasure, Stacy?
Either one, it's up to you.
Either one?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'd like to finish.
I'd kind of like to finish.
I think it's appropriate for you to finish out this meeting.
Okay. Okay, with no objections, then I will. Thank you. Vice Chair, I'd like to nominate Jim Comstock.
Second.
Any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor of Jim for Vice Chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I guess I don't vote no.
You could.
I'll be glad to. No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, good, congratulations. Well,
And Stacy, don't miss any meetings.
Problem.
all right. Next up is approval of the minutes from the May 21st meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Betsy?
Yes, sir. I believe we have to have the comments that were written comments submitted at the last meeting included in the minutes so that they would be posted online so that people could actually see those. And I think you guys agreed.
Does anyone remember that?
Actually, I think that is correct.
So,
Because when I was reading the minutes, I do recall that.
thank you, Jim.
So, then you would like to have those added to?
Yes, do we amend the minutes to those comments? How difficult is that, John?
Well, they're a PDF file or something.
Is it a PDF file?
Yeah, it's just, it'll just be an attachment.
Right.
Just as an attachment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Then I ask for a motion to approve with the change.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the minutes as amended with that.
Okay.
Second.
Second. 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is public comment. This is a time to address the commission on any matter that's not on the agenda that's within our purview. Do we have any public comment this morning?
Seeing no hands.
Jeez. I think this is a first. Okay.
Well,
It's the weather. Betsy's, she's got a spot on the agenda, so she's
I'm good, thank you.
good, okay. All right, hearing no public comment, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And this is basically paying the bills. We have,
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
okay,
Second?
got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Next up is a public hearing. This is regarding the service review and sphere of influence for the East Lake and West Lake Resource Conservation Districts. So we'll start with John doing his report.
Okay, I handed out an errata sheet for this with some comments from Greg Dills that came in. And what you have is a hearing draft of the Westlake and Eastlake RCD, and the service review basically goes through the services that these RCDs perform. As you know, an RCD, there are no two RCDs in the state of California nationwide, as far as that goes, that are the same. They all take on different kinds of resource-related conservation-type projects. And so what you have here is, well, I'll just go through the contents. You've already seen it, a little bit of the background, the history of the RCDs and the organization of resource conservation districts and the relationships with federal and state and local partners, and typically these districts all have local partners. The big issue with RCD is they can't be held to the same standard as, say, a water district or a fire district in terms of budget. Most of them do not have a budget at all. One of the two districts here has a basic tax rate. Most RCDs in California do not have any tax rate. So they're kind of relegated to getting grants from the Department of Conservation or the NRCS or Natural Resources Conservation Services or for other federal agencies and or volunteers, and their district boards are quite different than most districts. They have alternates that they don't vote at the meetings, but the alternates fill in, whereas on a water board you're elected and that's it. You're not an alternate. You're either there or you're not. So the service review for this, I'm still getting organized, but let me just go to the findings part of it. There's a lot of information that's here regarding our RCDs, and the service review is growth in population projections. That's just basically, it's countywide. Basically, the East Lake and West Lake are essentially countywide, not totally entirely. Like, I believe the city of Lakeport is not in the RCD, and I don't understand why it isn't. There's just a discussion that there's a continued need for the RCD to address the needs of the population and natural resources. The disadvantaged communities really doesn't apply to this, but as you know, a lot of Lake County is called the disadvantaged unincorporated or incorporated community as far as that goes. And but the LAFCo law doesn't really require an analysis of that. The planned and present public facilities, RCDs really don't have much public facilities. Some RCDs may have computers, or they may have participated in some sort of a fields management program or a rice roller program or those sorts of things. So they really don't have offices and buildings and these sorts of things. And a lot of the tools they use would be within partnerships with other agencies also. And the financial ability to provide services is, you got to look at an RCD differently than you do anything else. If you went based on their budget, they have the ability to do anything. But they really do, and they do a lot of good, a lot of volunteer work, and a lot of projects, and they add a lot of value to other programs in the community. And there's a continuing need for these districts to acquire funds. And this has been ongoing for years with RCDs, and occasionally, I think it was about 15 years ago, they had this water, what do they call those? Watershed coordinator programs, and they had grants, and eventually these grants kind of went away. And so a lot of the districts, they get revenue through programs like fields management programs, for example, and having ways to go to private property and charging for cleaning up forest debris. And I know in a lot of the valley counties they have rice roller programs. We don't have a lot of rice in Lake County. So there is a continuous need for the districts to secure funding. The districts have, I would say of any of the districts in the county, that the RCDs really are good partners. They really have maximized your imagination limits their amount of ability to share, and they really do share resources. As far as structure and accountability, they have a board of director meetings, and they do have they provide necessary public services insofar as their budget allows, but through their partnerships with other programs that state and federal and local agencies have, they partner with them. The sphere of influence determinations, I'll basically say that we have, is the recommendation for the sphere of influence is that there be one county-wide resource conservation district. This has occurred in a lot of counties in California. Colusa County is the closest one that I'm aware of. They consolidated their 2 RCDs several years ago. There are some issues that the districts will need to work with, and one of them is financing. One of them does actually get a small portion of the property tax. The other one doesn't. The other one, and these districts have differing debt levels. So those issues have to be reconciled, but the overall recommendation is that the sphere of influence for resource conservation district be one sphere of influence, being countywide, could be more effective that way, and that's been proven true in other counties that are adjacent to Lake County. So that would be the recommendation, and also to include the incorporated area of Lakeport. Clear Lake's already in it.
John, I'd like to ask a question. It's kind of a chicken and egg question. You're recommending that we approve one countywide sphere.
Right.
But is that appropriate before the RC? In other words, if there's going to be a consolidation of the RCDs, it seems to me that that would be done at the same time that they would consolidate. Are you suggesting?
Well, we're sending a signal that we'd like to see an application for a consolidation, and that the RCD should work on a consolidation plan to provide
that's what I'm
services
getting
countywide.
at.
They actually are functionally almost consolidated right now.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is this is a recommendation. It's not something that we're doing today.
It's a recommendation to set the sphere to be countywide, which sends the signal to the districts. We would like to see a consolidated RCD, countywide RCD.
Okay.
That's all it does.
That's clear. I'm sorry, did I?
No, that's it. That's it, yeah. It sends a signal that in the future we'd like to see an application for a consolidated resource district. And they do have some issues they need to work out, and they will do so before we see any consolidation effort.
And then they would come and make an application.
They would make an application to LAFCo. And I would be concerned with their limited budgets that we might be asked to consider a fee waiver for this effort. But that'll be at a later time.
Okay.
John, at one time, and they share the offices with NRCS, which is one for the whole area. They used to be, back when it was soil conservation, there was East and West Lake Soil Conservation also.
Right.
And those wouldn't kind of be a natural progression to do that same thing.
Right. They were and in other counties there were multiple RCDs, and there's an effort by the NRCS itself as well as the state to consolidate these. And this isn't the only county that's contemplating consolidation of RCDs at this time.
You know, we're talking RCD. NRCS here does a lot in this county.
Oh, I know. I know, and they work hand in hand with the NRCS.
Good.
It's like if you, again, I keep going back to Colusa because it's the closest one. They have an RCD office, one RCD, and it's in the NRCS office, just like it is here.
Right.
They have a good rapport with the district conservationist, and on up from there.
Okay. Any other questions from the LAFCo members? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Ask anyone who wishes to speak to come on up to the podium, identify yourself. Ask what you think.
Jim Steele, and I read the report and appreciate the conversation that's taken place so far, because I didn't recognize from the report that it was just a recommendation. I thought that the recommendation I made to you and you were going to take an action on something that was forward. Apparently that's not the case. So if you're making a recommendation back to the RCDs, why not make the recommendation that they be formulated around the actual resource? You have 450 square miles of resource that drain into this lake. Seems like that's a natural unit of an RCD where they can focus on something that actually has a beginning, an upland, and actually a downland and into the lake itself, or inland. All of that is wrapped around one purpose, and they'd be more effective. But actually, right now, it's east to west, and so you're dividing that resource. And if you get outside that lake basin, you're in a different kind of biome, and so it would be a different resource to manage. But it seemed like you would organize your recommendation around the resource. It's just a thought.
Thank you.
Well, and then there's, of course, there's the Pew Creek. That drainage is completely.
Right, that's a different drainage.
It's completely different, and we don't.
Can't hear you.
Can't
Really hard to hear you.
Pewter Creek in South County is a completely different, it is what it is. I don't know if it's working or not.
That is, but it don't have to now.
Not a bad distance.
You guys all need to speak in your mics, please.
Pewter Creek drainage is different, but we're not going to have one just for that. That would be a little bit small. So it would make sense. Jim was saying, we have two. We do have the Clear Lake Basin is one, Pewter Creek is a different.
You know, one thing I'm concerned about having an RCD in the Pewter Creek drainage is most counties have several drainage or portions of several drainage systems. Lake County has, you have three.
Yeah.
But Pewter Creek is, that watershed involves more than just one county.
Yes, it does.
And so
it needs to be.
So administratively, to manage the resources in the county, doesn't it make sense to have a single county?
It does. I just want to be identified that that's more than one.
And there are, yeah, and there's three principal watersheds, and there's several so-called sub-watersheds.
Right.
And I'll talk about those later.
Yeah. We can combine them in one.
Right. As far as an RCD goes, there's ways you can, as LAFCo, you can initiate a consolidation yourself. I wouldn't recommend it. The RCDs have a lot of details that they need to work out themselves before we get involved in that.
Let them do it and bring it to us as a
Such as
package.
a plan for providing services and what they're going to do, and a financing plan, how they're going to reconcile the fact that one area gets a property tax and the other area doesn't. How are they going to deal with debts? And then how are they going to deal with the pooled resources and that they have? So I think there's a lot of details that need to be worked out by the RCDs. We're looking at big picture here, that it would be a great idea to have one single county RCD. And I'm an executive officer in Modoc County. Modoc County has 6 different RCDs. 6 RCDs, can you believe it? It's like herding cats there for the NRCS. One of them is, the principal county is Shasta County. And there's one that goes into Siskiyou County. There's one that's defunct because they don't have any resources. And then there's one that got in a irrigated lands program that is kind of the poison pill for the other RCDs. They don't want to consolidate. And then there's another 2 that want to consolidate because they're more copacetic in terms of watersheds. So they've got more complex issues than we ever have in Lake County. The effort of getting a countywide RCD there is probably almost nil. But here, there is a real possibility that would work, as in Colusa and Glenn County, who Glenn County at one time had a couple RCDs. So.
Question. So, and this is on a different tack. I realize that these MSRs are referencing source data from various places. It seems to me that in some cases we need to update our source data pretty dramatically, and I'll just give one example: the population projections. mean, there is no way in 2015 there are going to be 78,000 people in Lake County. The population projection was taken from the general plan and was sourced as 2007 data with a 2000 census base. It needs to go back, it needs to go to the 2010 census, and which showed, I think, somewhere around 64,000 something people in Lake County, whereas this says in 2010 there would be 71,900. That didn't happen. So we need to go, I mean, in some of these cases for the source data, we need to go to the most recent. And
Has the county done that anywhere?
I don't know that we've done it in the general plan, but we do have access to the 2010 census data.
Oh, yeah, we have all that.
Yeah. So
I just
would
wondered
use-
if there's an official
I'm not sure.
that county government has come up with. You know, the city of Clear Lake probably has an updated figure in their draft general plan, but
Yeah.
Lakeport would be in the same.
We need to do that, because there's no way there's going to be 78,000 people in Lake County next year. Unless magically 14,000.
I hope not.
God, we make comments.
Visitors on the session. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it won't.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need the accurate.
5% change.
Yeah, they're going to bring out the children here.
The children from
Yeah.
Central.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Well, thanks, Denise. That was an excellent point. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, there's several things I want to say. First of all, we really do need and appreciate having a conservation district, and especially in the context of this natural resource-rich, wonderful place. And we want it to be able to do all the things that its statutory codes refer to. It's got an enormous amount of ability to support some of the watershed issues and wetlands protections and so forth, habitat conservation, all the kinds of things that really are missing. And we'd love to have the conservation district fulfill their role as best they can. So anything that supports the strengthening of this organization, I'm totally in favor of, and I'll be happy to help. In particular, when you talk about the basin, I think that Jim's comment is appropriate to the fact that it's similar about our watershed protection district, where in fact we cannot provide taxpayer-funded services in federal areas. We can apply for grants, we can get cooperative agreements, we can apply funding from federal programs into the forested areas, but the county does not have any jurisdiction over those. And so limiting our scope of activity to something that's reasonable, and similarly to the population reality and the property tax reality and the TOT tax reality, all the new reality that we should all go and adjust to, is really a very important function that the Conservation District can be a tremendous leader to help us do this. I was a little confused about the format of this particular review, John, because there's no maps. As I understand, there are land management programs and things that have been done in conjunction with NRCS and Food Creative Stewardship Council and those kinds of things. I think it would be really helpful to see those in your service review, to understand what your districts have done and where they do function and all the parts that are really served by the district. John, you mentioned that Clear Lake is already in it. The city of Clear Lake is already in the conservation district, is that correct?
It was in it because the city of Clear Lake was incorporated in 1980.
So the incorporation
But Lakeport,
didn't cancel their
original
relationship.
area of Lakeport. The original area of Lakeport is not in it.
So that would be really beneficial. And again, because it pertains to drainages, and the drainages pertain to the Clean Water Program, and the Clean Water Program pertains to the restoration of the watershed. So that would be really important to identify. As you guys may not know this, I've been volunteering for the city of Clear Lake for the last couple of years to try to help them get stream restoration grants. And I haven't spoken with you guys about it, but we're working together to get some grants that the conservation district has provided a tremendous amount of supportive work toward, but specifically in the city, it's been kind of left out, because of the incorporation thing. So that's something I really like to see happen. I'm not sure what the assets are, but as I understand, there's conservation programs that I don't know if they provide management programs or, the cost of maintaining conservation areas. I'd love to know where those are and how they relate to our drainages. And that would be really helpful because we're still trying to get a grip on those drainages. And then I'm really curious as to how this conservation district is connected to our reclamation district, and specifically up there in Upper Lake and the watershed, the wetland program and the Julie Lake issues, and that's a specific case example of where we really need comprehension to include all the overlapping and interrelated programs. And so that would be something I'd look at if I had the choice. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Anyone else? Rick, I see people from the RCDs here.
Morning, Craig Hills, District Manager, East Lake, West Lake Resource Conservation District. At one time there were 5 RCDs here in Lake County back in the late 50s, early 60s. They went through a consolidation exercise and formed the 2 districts that we have now. The 2 boards are talking to each other about a consolidation effort, so things are moving in that direction, but as John mentioned, there's issues that we have to work out and see how everything will fit. So it may take a while before any application comes forward. The districts have been involved heavily with watershed issues, as everybody here is probably aware. We are currently working with the Forest Service on a 42-mile stormproofing project on the roads on the forest to eliminate the sediment running off those roads into the drainages. That's an ongoing project. We just finished construction this year, and we're going through the monitoring phase now to be able to come up with the numbers for the percent of reduction. But the estimates with the grant application that went in was 50%, and it looks like we're going to hit that, if not better. We also have a partnership with the Bureau of Land Management, which has secured a $750,000 grant for a restoration project on the headwaters of Scotts Creek up there. So, we are working on watershed issues directly related to Clear Lake, and we've also been working in the Upper Clear Creek watershed, the Eel River watershed. There's a 4th watershed that's in the district, but it's just a little postage stamp. It's the Upper Stony, and it's way up on the other side of the Mendocino Forest. So, any questions?
And I don't know that I see it in here. Maybe it is in here. It seems like the RCD, at least the one that Westlake RCD, has had really active and effective outreach programs and education programs, and also you've had regular updates for people to find out what's going on, what are the projects and whatnot. Is that still happening?
Well, actually, both districts have been involved in that. We do the annual Kids in the Creek and field day events in both watersheds, Fuda Creek and Cache Creek watershed, both districts, I should say. We have educational events. We participated, with the county public works watershed protection district, secured a $400,000 grant back in 2008. We were able to develop 3 watershed assessments and a Clear Lake Integrated Watershed Management Plan, which is under review right now for update, participating in that exercise. With those 3 watershed assessments and the watershed management plan, we secured those 2 $750,000 grants, and one up on the forest and one up on BLM. So we've been very active in watershed-related issues.
I personally found the education to be really powerful, especially as you're showing the photos of the projects before and after.
Right.
Just a follow-up question as you talk about this is, how are projects selected? The ones that you choose to go for grants. I mean, is it based on what grants are available? Is it based on a list that you have that as grants come available, you go after the ones you most need?
It's a combination. Well, for getting the watershed assessments and the management plan done, it was a kind of a rare opportunity. Funding came out of the Cal Fed Watershed Committee through DWR, and that was kind of very fortunate because planning grants are very difficult to get and they are very rare, especially on the magnitude of what we applied for. And so that was fortunate timing, but we had been working up to that point where we knew we needed a management plan. Actually, the county started back in 1989, I think, on the Clear Lake Basin Management Plan, which morphed into that Integrated Watershed Management Plan. So, you know, all these ongoing efforts to get these projects on the ground takes a considerable amount of time. There was public meetings for the 3 watershed assessments and the management plan. You know, it was vetted, comments, you know, we did all the storming and norming, the issues, and boiled it down to projects that are now in those plans and assessments. And then that's what we use to go after the funding. You have to have a plan in place to be able to acquire those dollars. It's pretty much standard now through all funding agencies, state and federal, that these projects need to be documented.
Greg, the original 5, what were they and what areas did they comprise?
There were 3 in the West Lake District, Upper Lake, Scotts Creek, and Big Valley. In South Lake, it was the Cuda Creek and I think the Coyote Valley.
Okay.
Soil conservation districts. I can get back to you on
that. That'd be fine. Yeah. Well, as a kid, we were very involved with them, and I remember that.
Yeah.
Guy's name, Will Warner, even lived in that town, and very closely with the ranchers there.
Oh, yeah.
It was big.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you know, NRCS is very active county-wide. And
yeah, we got very familiar with those counties and what they do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Greg.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Victoria Brandon. I'm a member of the East Lake RCD board. And I just want to expand a little on what Greg said and expand a little on what Jim was saying about Cuda Creek Watershed. We also do an educational program that started down in the South County called Trout in the Classroom, where kids actually get fish right in their classroom. They see them develop from the egg, actual little swimming fish, and then they go out and they take them out into the creeks. And this project was rather recently, this was the baby of Dwight Holford, who was the watershed coordinator for Cuda Creek Stewardship. And it's recently been also taken over by Westlake, which is doing it now with assistance from our board member, Dan Desmond. And Greg mentioned the kids in the creek and the field days in the creek. We also give a scholarship every year, and we're probably going to expand it to another one because we've had so many donations. This is in honor of our former late board member, Frank Meisenbach. And people really want to support Frank and want to support education for our youth in conservation-related matters. And so we've been giving $500 a year, and we're getting in more donations than that, so we're going to expand that program. But as far as Cuda Creek is concerned, that's in our district. And one of the complications about consolidation, which both districts absolutely recognize makes absolute sense from a resource conservation standpoint, the problems are technical and fiscal, in that a substantial proportion of East Lake's assets are specifically dedicated to the Cuda Creek watershed. And any consolidation agreement has to include provisions for making sure that these dedicated funds go for where they were intended. And the scholarship program is the same sort of thing. They were specifically dedicated for students living in the East Lake district. And so this is all nitty-gritty that has to be worked out. We've got a meeting coming up, a 2x2 from the 2 boards, because we're subject to the Brown Act as much as county government is, a week from Monday, where we're going to start working out all of these details. Also, I noticed a mention in the comments that we don't seem to have a website, and that is unfortunately true, but it is getting fixed. East Lake is going to have a website up. When's your next LAFCo meeting?
September 7th.
Before that, I promise we're going to have a beta by the next East Lake meeting. if Westlake wants to take it over, they can use the same template. And it will certainly be, if we manage to consolidate, will be the model for that. And at that point, all sorts of information about our projects, about our activities, our agendas, our minutes, all of that will be up for public review. So.
Thanks, Victoria. Anyone else? Okay, well, then we will close the public hearing and bring the discussion back to the LAFCo board. We have 2 resolutions that we're asked to consider today.
I personally would like to see the population estimates updated. Just because it's a snapshot, I realize, but it's a snapshot that was 2007.
So what you're suggesting is that we postpone the resolutions until we
get that updated. Is that a problem, John?
No.
Okay.
Or can we approve it with that update?
With an amendment to the resolution? I don't know if you do that.
Well, it would be in the content of the MSR. So, you know, it's either or. You can just approve the resolutions and direct me to update this population projections. I'm curious around, and I'll be asking several departments or cities around the county. Well, okay, what are your current updated population?
Yeah, they need to be using 2010 census. 2010.
Yeah, and they probably, yeah, well, if not, it'll put them on notice to
No
do
kidding.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope they're not using 2000 census.
Okay, I don't have any problem updating these at all. It's just whenever we need to update them for everything else too. Suzanne?
Yeah, I had a question. John, you said in the beginning that the city of Lakeport isn't included and you don't understand why. The city of Lakeport seems to not be included in a lot of stuff.
And there's also a small little, there was another rancher, Greg, I can't remember his name. He didn't want to be included back in the day.
Keeley.
Keeley, and they're not included either.
Well, apparently he didn't want to be, but I don't know.
Associated.
I'm not sure how it happened that Lakeport wasn't, unless Lakeport was incorporated before this happened. And I mean, there could be reasons way back when. But one of the things it does say in here, it talks about in unincorporated and incorporated areas that your board of directors ends up having representatives from the city. And when what we're talking about is we're sitting right here on the lake and all this stuff is behind us happening, that not to have any voice or not to even be recognized as part of the population or as living here, that's something that I would think has to be corrected somehow. We're like Brigadoon.
The notion is that they would be consolidating, but also including these other areas.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
That's just
to make
not
sure that's
acceptable
like
not to include Lakeport.
in the words.
Would that require an action on the city's part to be included or no?
No, I don't believe it would on this type of district.
So may I ask one question, please?
Okay.
I don't understand the format, as I said, I'm not understanding, I'm seeing determinations and I'm not seeing findings. I'm seeing normal things missing and it's okay, but, you know, I'm not sure what this actual, other than saying we'd like you to consider consolidating and we want you to come back to us. You know, if that's the upshot of this process of reviewing this, I'm not sure it really serves us, as Suzanne said. And for example, this issue of the city of Clear Lake, it may be in the district, but it has not benefited from the district services in terms of developing a watershed assessment. And you know, we need that. We need this stuff to be brought together in a productive way. We want the district to do that, but your MSR is not going to say anything about it. There's no findings about that.
We're only required to do determinations, and they're in the MSR. That we make findings in other cases, but here it's determinations.
So what can we do to make those things happen?
Findings aren't required in the MSR.
The determinations are required. So that's what is in the MSR. I can reformat it. I can redo the whole MSR if you'd like and essentially start over.
I'm not asking that, I'm just asking this one question.
No. I mean, I think it meets our requirements and the requirements of the state law. And it provides direction to the districts that will go forth and put forth a proposal to consolidate.
It provides the sphere update.
It provides the sphere update. That's what we need to do.
And as far as the maps that you mentioned, we're getting maps.
There is a map.
Yeah.
The last page. And that is the map showing the county.
Yeah, if we're going for a consolidation, why go to the cost of putting in maps that are going to be obsolete?
Obsolete immediately.
Yeah. You know, she brings up a point, but it's a bigger issue to me, is that what we need to do is do a format for MSRs, the content of the MSRs, and get down there, nail it down 100%. This is what our MSRs are going to be like. And we're going to have to do that. And that's a whole other project, and I couldn't agree more with Betsy on that. What is the content going to be in the MSR? What things are we going to look at? What things aren't we going to look at? Because that's the only way I can control the budget. If we just go willy-nilly, I could write an MSR. We could write an MSR on the RCD that's 5,000 pages. We could write an MSR on the RCD that's 3 pages. So that's a project I want to address, and Ed and I have been talking about this for years, is to come up with what are the matrix, what's the matrices, whatever. What's the content of an MSR going to be and look at? So I think we would start with an outline, and we're going to look at population projections. We're going to deal with the most current population projections would be one thing, and then go on from there. And I think that way the MSRs can all be standardized in the county, where every MSR says this about the district. If it's not applicable, we put NA.
Sort of a minimum threshold.
Yeah, a threshold, yes.
A basic outline that says what an MSR is.
Yeah, and what we want to get out of it, because a lot of things, MSRs are, the purpose is to support the sphere of influence. It's not to save the world. So what we need to do is make sure they meet our needs, and maybe we might want to save the world, so we'll add some other things to it, but that's really your decision. So I'm just saying that, but it can be whatever. And so like, I mean, there's just various content, but that's a discussion we can have later on, because the Watershed Protection District MSR, this MSR, and the Tuolumne County Water District MSR all look different. So let's just standardize what in the heck is in the MSR. And we'll have to look at it annually, because the laws change. They have new findings, and
a basic format, and then you can adapt it to the specific district.
Yeah, I think that she's got a point there that we ought to explore.
With as long as LAFCo's been around, there's not something that's fairly standard that LAFCo's use?
I wish.
Dear God.
Everyone has their own.
You'd be amazed. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 seminars on this, and the differences between MSR formats, I mean, there's some basic statutory requirements, but the way the individual LAFCOs do it varies all over the board.
We talked about the wrong things up in Tahoe then, as far as I'm concerned.
You probably did.
Yeah.
Betsy's comments are very valid, as, you know, if concisely and economically we can prepare an MSR that supports the sphere of influence, for one thing, and second of all, provides some value to everybody in the county, that's the second part of it. But you have to do it within, you know, certain cost constraints, because sometimes, you know, if you write a 5,000-page MSR, you've defeated the whole purpose, because there's only 3 people in the county that's going to read it. I'm not going to be one of them. But you can consolidate it to a short and concise service review that's of value. And I have a third thing, a value to the community is one thing. I want an MSR that when I get an application for a district, the MSR provides the information I need for that application. So that's a third, I got three things that an MSR should look at. But let me kind of ask around some of my colleagues and get a bunch of stuff and bring it back here. And
Yeah,
one of
this
these
is
days,
a big
we're
discussion
gonna
that we should have in a separate meeting. We're getting a little off topic, and I need to be.
Well, and we could
Yeah.
sell it to these people who don't have it.
May I please make one comment? That there's an additional purpose. What happens is the contents of your approved MSRs then become source documents that are used for planning decisions. And when there's a planning decision, for example, with the Clean Water Program, where you have the 3 co-permittees that have to have integrated stormwater pollution prevention, drainage management requiring conservation protection, it's got to be integrated. That's the kind of finding the commission can make. And in fact, LAFCo says you have an additional purpose, and it's to be the legislature's watchdog. So you have an obligation to the taxpayers who fund your public services to make sure that we get this problem set solved. This comes up every single time.
Okay, and that's part of the big discussion that we need to have on MSRs, but I'm going to try to bring our focus back to this agenda item, which is these 2 particular resolutions. We need to decide whether we want to approve the resolutions today and direct staff to make the changes, the updates and so forth, or to postpone the resolutions until the updates are made and then approve the resolutions. What's the pleasure of LAFCo?
I'm happy to approve the resolutions today, provided that we direct staff to update the population estimates in there based on the 2010 census.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I see Mike Dunlap back there kind of using body language. It's a little late in the discussion, the public hearing's been closed, but I'll let you.
We closed the public input, and now we're opening it up.
Well,
You can.
Why not?
Mike Dunlap is chair, what the hell?
If he opens it, he's got to open it.
I was thinking more of public comment than opening the hearing.
I just want to make a public comment regarding your adopting the resolution in an unfinished form. I would encourage you not to do that, because I'm in the process in another venue in the county working with a document that was adopted in an unfinished form, and we have spent 8 months working on it, and we haven't gotten it corrected. Get it right and then adopt it, please.
So, with that comment, does anybody change their mind, or do we want to go ahead?
I don't.
The changes we're talking
I don't
about are
see that.
fairly simple and straightforward.
These are information that's available to be plugged in.
And I do have a question, though. I'm still unclear on the idea of, would the city of Lakeport be included in this again? Or not?
It's included in the sphere, definitely. It's countywide.
And
Keithley was the other property also.
Keeling.
Oh,
Keeling.
okay, and that would mean that the city would have some ability to be part of the board of directors.
Well, that would be the next step with part of the consolidation. This is just the sphere.
Okay.
That can't happen.
Yeah. All right. Is anyone interested in making a motion? Or not setting a motion, but offering?
Denise, you got questions on the resolution?
I don't know how to offer the resolution contingent upon something. How's that done? Is it even possible?
Got it.
Well, I mean, as long as you're directing fairly ministerial changes to the document, you can just say, I approve the adoption of the MSR with the following changes to be made in the final version.
So I offer the resolution to approve the MSR contingent upon the population updates being, or the population estimates being updated to 2010 census.
You can't hear.
Second.
Okay. I just want to restate this to make sure we're all clear. The resolution is being offered to approve the MSR with the provision that the population figures will be updated to the current one. Right?
Yes.
They have to turn the volume down.
We're all clear?
You guys aren't getting on your mics enough and they can't hear you back here.
Okay, now,
We're trying to offer the
here's
resolution.
the record.
Yeah.
Okay. If we had a clerk, at this point in the meeting, I would ask the clerk to do a roll call vote, but since there's no...
I can do the roll call for,
You want to do the... Okay, John, I was going to do it, but I'd rather...
Okay, roll call vote on the motion for the resolution for the MSR. That's the resolution 2014-05. The resolution is that it was moved by Commissioner Rushing, seconded by Commissioner Matina, to approve the resolution subject to the population figures being updated to the 2010 or latest population figures. I would have that possibly, but the 2010 base. So, having the roll call vote, Commissioner Roby.
Aye.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Aye.
Commissioner Matina.
Aye.
Commissioner Rushing. Aye. Commissioner Comstock.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
And I think that's it. And you're an alternate?
Yeah,
Today.
fill in.
Right, and he's filling in for Commissioner Lustelo.
Okay.
So,
So I'm not filling in for anybody?
so that's,
No, because you.
I'm filling in for somebody, aren't I? There's-
no, you're an alternate. He's an alternate.
Oh, for you, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Otherwise, we can ask, does Commissioner Lyons concur?
No.
Okay, all right, for the record. Okay, so motion passes.
We have a second resolution regarding the adoption of the sphere of influence, which would be the whole county.
After the resolution.
The resolution's been offered.
Okay, Denise, Commissioner Rushing offered the resolution. May I have the roll call vote, which is Commissioner Roby.
Aye.
Commissioner Gillespie. Aye. Commissioner Matina.
Aye.
Commissioner Rushing.
Aye.
Commissioner Comstock.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
And Commissioner Alternate Lyons.
I couldn't hear what.
This was on the sphere of influence, to adopt the sphere of influence for the RCD.
And it's only a recommendation, right?
No,
It is an actual-
we're adopting the
For
resolution.
the whole county.
Commissioner Lyons is an alternate, and alternates are not.
She doesn't have a vote.
She doesn't have the vote, but
She should not be.
What do we need for a quorum here? I'm really confused.
we have a quorum, the
Okay,
six,
without
the
me.
seven
The
commissioners.
member is Commissioner
I
Roby, the
understand.
alternate for the public member is
Yeah.
alternate.
If I were absent, you would be voting.
Be voting, I understand. I didn't think we had a quorum without me, is what I was saying.
Yeah, we have a quorum. That wasn't, I was out for the first part of the meeting, but we do have a quorum. We
Okay.
have 6 commissioners here.
Okay, I thought it was 7, so it doesn't matter. Because
And we have a commissioner alternate.
Okay. Anyway, so what we're, just to be clear, the sphere of influence would be the entire county. This
That's the
doesn't,
vote, that the sphere of influence for the RCD, both RCDs together combined would be a combined sphere of influence, including all of Lake County,
right, this doesn't,
including the city.
this doesn't cause the consolidation.
No.
Right.
It sets the stage for the consolidation.
Okay. So I
Okay.
vote yes.
Next up, item 7, consider adopting a policy where LAFCo acts as a CEQA lead agency and consider resolution 2014-007, thereby amending LAFCO CEQA guidelines. You want to explain what that's all about, John?
Right. This came up several months ago, and as you are aware, we have CEQA guidelines of how we implement CEQA. And what this would do is that if, it all came up because of Lakeport, but it really goes beyond Lakeport. That if the city adopts a general plan, and they do an environmental review for their project, or if a district has an environmental review for a project, it comes up to LAFCo and it's determined that we want to the city wants to expand it beyond what the environmental review covered, that the cost of the expanded environmental review would be borne by the agency. That's essentially it.
Not LAFCO.
And not LAFCO. We don't have a budget for that. So that's what that says. And
this is a fairly rare type of occurrence.
yeah, because when we do a sphere of influence update, not necessarily an amendment, they have to do it anyway. But for an update, that's LAFCO's obligation, is to prepare the update. And we don't want to get saddled with a lot of CEQA costs because an agency wants more territory. Or in the case of, it could be any city, I hate to point the finger at Lakeport, but say an environmental document was adopted and 2 years have happened since the environmental document. Situations may have changed. And that if there's more environmental needed, that should be borne by the lead agency or by the affected agency and not LAFCO. We just can't afford to be doing updated CEQA reviews. As you know, that CEQA reviews can get a lot more detailed. So that's what this does. It essentially just says, okay, well, that the agency wants to add more to the sphere of influence, then that they would pay the CEQA cost.
Right. Any questions?
I have a question. Yes. So is this happening in other LAFCOs? We are seeing this?
Yeah, so we just did this in Nevada LAFCO. We had a district that wanted to include additional territory in its sphere that wasn't covered by an existing environmental document. So we basically told them, if you want us to consider it, you pay for the preparation of the additional environmental documentation for that.
And this is something that's not going to justify to the city of Lakeport. If another area comes up with the same sort of thing, it's going to apply to them as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it's just so that if it, we have no way when we do our budget of anticipating what kind of applications we're going to get. And if a special district wanted to expand their sphere, a water district, say, and it was going to require a CEQA document or update to their existing CEQA document, why should we pay for that when they want to do it? I mean, we wouldn't even have the money in our budget.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but that's what LAFCO is and does. So in a sense, part of me wonders if it disintegrates the whole idea of what LAFCO is here to do. But I understand with the budget that maybe it makes more sense to make people responsible for some of those costs.
And it doesn't happen very often. It's kind of one of rare occurrences. But it's kind of a gotcha thing where who's going to pay for it? It's unclear. What this does is clarify it.
An example was quite a few years ago now, Calumet County Water went out as far as the casino. If that could have been on the LAFCO's budget, and it wasn't a problem. And Calumet County Water is looking to expand that, but then we get to drill some wells, so we got to get them in the district.
Right.
It's going to be the same thing. It's got to be on them, not,
Right.
Those are special districts issues, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Hidden Valley Lake and Crazy Creek, that's an example.
Exactly.
That's the best example.
Exactly. That is our best example.
Yeah, because we're going to be doing an update for Hidden Valley Lake, and they want to include Crazy Creek. Okay, well, that's great. Who's going to do the environmental review? So I've been working with Rick Coel and I guess Jim on this.
And
so we'll see where that goes.
And Roland from JP.
Yeah.
Does that answer your concern?
It's not targeting. Well, it's not targeting Lakeport. It's
Well,
not
I
a-
mean,
it's not a
obviously
gotcha.
that's where it came from, but.
It started with.
It brought it to the
brought it up.
surface. It brought it to the surface.
For us, it started here, but it also started in other places. I've seen it, this is a common problem for LAFCos, is the CEQA cost.
If we do it, the budget's going to have to get increased significantly, which we
Right,
don't want to do that.
and the other supporters of LAFCO don't want to pay the cost.
No, they're paying,
Right.
they would be paying,
Just like Lakeport doesn't want to subsidize Crazy Creek.
exactly. Lakeport doesn't want to subsidize Crazy Creek.
They should.
And if the sphere of influence remains the same, then LAFCO is responsible for any environmental document that they would request or require.
The problem with the sphere of influence, as the county pointed it out, is we're supposed to update these spheres of influence every 5 years. So Lakeport has a huge sphere. We update the sphere of influence. The question is does the environmental review, is there any different impacts? And we have different opinions on that. And I think Scott found a appellate case that basically said, yeah, we gotta do environmental review, even though the sphere in Lakeport or Clear Lake or anywhere is huge. So, because we're taking another action, so.
Don't feel picked on, but
Oh, I still
what you
make
do.
I'm
Understand
feeling
it.
it.
Of course you
I'm
do.
just making a comment.
I
That's all.
appreciate it. Understand it.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing then.
Good. Well, I went back before CEQA, so I've done a lot of inside, as it developed, the court cases, that sort of thing.
Right.
And over the years, that's
For the
actually...
recording, this is Jim Steele speaking.
Jim Steele, and for the record, a lot of counties started going to the payment of CEQA by the applicant, so it was an applicant-driven process. The hidden cost to all of that was the oversight of the application. So let's say that somebody comes in and they want a project, and let's say, okay, you'll have to pay for the CEQA. Now, the county has to oversight to make sure that all of their jurisdictional issues are taken care of in CEQA. Let's say that there is a cumulative impact, and the finding by the applicant is that there is no cumulative impact. Well, guess who's held? It's the county or the oversight. And so basically what you do is you take the applicant's consultant, in this case would be a consultant, take that consultant, make it answerable to the jurisdictional body. Now, you'd be the jurisdictional body, and now you need a project oversight person to run that project. And they would have to pay through the regular budget to the oversight person. So now you'll need a position that you've got to have, handle the whole project. And that's what the counties actually wound up doing. So a lot of counties have done that.
Yeah, and the county, actually, that EIR that's prepared by some consultant out there becomes your EIR.
Yeah, it becomes your EIR, and it's not really prepared for the applicants, prepared for the county, and all the money passes through.
Exactly.
Now you need hidden staff. Now you got shadow staff that actually oversights this whole thing.
Right.
Because I worked on both sides of this coin. I was working for the state, and then I became a consultant, and basically we could actually drive the county staff by virtue of being the consultant, and the county then would hold us back, and the applicant had no say to it. So there is a shadow issue here that you got to consider. You got to have some oversight staff, and the money that comes in has to be enough to support that staff, because they're going to make their payments, the boat payments and everything else. Otherwise, you won't have it. So that, in some places, turned out to be a consultant as well. So if you need to take care of it in another way, you can actually drive a consultant's paycheck and have someone that you can call and say, okay, we have something coming in, you'll be the consultant, and then the applicant drives money through the consultant to the oversight. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, but you got to think about it ahead of time. You're going to be caught again.
And we do have that's contemplated already in our CEQA policy. So we've thought about that,
Okay.
Covering our costs of CEQA before an application as well as after an application.
And the applicants have to know that coming in. It's
Right.
very well spelled out, some of the regional water quality control board approaches. It's very well spelled out there. So there's places you can find this.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Step on up. Please identify yourself for the record.
Mark Dunlap, and it's more of a question. Isn't LAFCo's role in this process to gather the information as opposed to generate the information? So couldn't you, in fact, essentially just say to the applicant that's asking for a change in their sphere of influence that your documentation is deficient and you need to go to make it right?
That's a good question, but the problem here is we have two different actions. One is a sphere amendment that is initiated by the agency. The agency says, we want to change our sphere. The other is that we're required every 5 years to do a sphere update. That's a LAFCo responsibility.
Right.
There's no application by the agency that we can force them to go back and do more information.
Retrospectively.
Yeah, this is a LAFCO action.
Right.
We're supposed to do the sphere update. The idea, however, is that frequently happens is when we go to do the sphere update, we look at LAFCO policy issues and say, okay, we think the sphere should be this, and we have an EIR out here that we can rely upon to do that sphere. And then the agency comes in and says, wait a second, we want you to include this territory over here in the sphere update while you're doing it. And the goal of this policy is to say, okay, if you want us to consider that, in order for us to be able to consider it, we have to have the environmental documentation that addresses the environmental issues for that area, which isn't in the existing document we have. So we're asking you, agency, to cover the cost. Now, the LAFCo will do the environmental review. The agency won't do it. But the agency has to reimburse LAFCO for having to address those specific concerns that the agency wants addressed.
Okay. Then I'm just a little bit confused. Why is LAFCO going to do the EIR? Isn't LAFCO's responsibility to just gather the information?
When LAFCO is updating the sphere, it is the lead agency under CEQA.
I understand.
It's responsible for the environmental document.
But in this case, in the case that you just made, okay, the agency has reached out and said, we want to do this different. Isn't LAFCO's job at that point to say, okay, provide the documentation to support what you want to do, as opposed to LAFCO doing it? You're still asking for all the information to come together, but I don't understand why LAFCO becomes the lead agency in somebody else's request for an expansion.
Well, I mean, the other way to do it would be to say, no, we're not going to consider that as part of a sphere update. You do a specific sphere amendment after we do the sphere update. But as long as LAFCO is acting as the lead agency, when we're responsible, which under the statute we are for doing an update, under CEQA, we are the lead agency. We're the agency that has to prepare the environmental document.
Okay.
We can't delegate it to somebody else. Now, we can hire a consultant to prepare it, but we're the ones responsible for overseeing the consultant and making sure it's done. And this policy would simply say that when we have to do that,
they have to pay.
They reimburse us for our cost hiring the consultant to do that extra work.
Okay. Thank you.
I think another way to say it is,
I'm listening.
in the case where LAFCO is doing its job in doing its update that's required by state law and that LAFCO is responsible for, if the agency says, hey, maybe we can modify our sphere during this update process and not have to go through applying for a, what's the word? A modification of their sphere, a separate process.
An amendment?
An amendment to the sphere, thanks. In other words, doing a sphere amendment through the update process, that LAFCO wouldn't get stuck with the environmental work on the part of the sphere that changed.
It would have to be ministerial, and it isn't. They have discretion.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't work.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't very articulate there, was I? Okay. Any other public input? In the public hearing? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to LAFCO.
Yeah, I would like to propose some revised language here on this, if it's okay.
Sure.
Just to make it clear what it says. So let me read it to you. It is the policy of LAFCo to use previously certified environmental documents to satisfy CEQA requirements for sphere of influence updates wherever feasible. We can't always use previous documents. Should an agency desire to include additional or different territory or services in its sphere through the sphere update process, and that those additional or different territory or services are not covered by the existing CEQA document or CEQA document that LAFCo intends to use, the cost of supplementing the CEQA document shall be paid by the agency unless otherwise determined by the Commission. That gives you more flexibility. Also includes, it's also possible that they could be asking, we don't want to change the territory, but we want to add a new service. And so I think it says the same thing this says it, but a little more concisely and clearly.
Okay, now I have a question. That's okay. Just somebody else. So if I understand this correctly, the way things stand now, if it's a sphere update and there's no application, that the costs will be borne by LAFCo. But what you're saying, I think now, is even with an update, you can require the agency to pay for
the CEQA process if they want something different.
If they want something changed from the existing.
Okay.
If it's just an update, no. If there's an update that requests a change, yes.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah. Now understand that for example, in the Nevada County situation, the Commission had already directed the staff to prepare the CEQA document based on a particular territorial boundaries. That the LAFCo felt were appropriate. And the agency itself didn't like what the LAFCO Commission was doing in terms of those boundaries. So they said, we want to consider you to consider these other boundaries. And we said, well, but that would require us to do a whole host of additional environmental review that isn't part of what we needed to do for the existing proposal. So in other words, this will cover not only a situation where there's an existing document, but in a situation where you decide, based on policy decisions, we think your territory and the CEQA document should look at this. If you want us to look at something different as well, you pay for that. And in the case in Nevada County, they paid $10,000 for additional environmental review, and the Commission rejected their additional territory anyway.
Well, that had to have gotten interesting.
They were upset, but a fun meeting.
Yeah.
But you know, it was one of those things where you wouldn't have been able to consider it at all unless they paid the money to get the CEQA review. Because we only had CEQA review for this, not for this.
You brought up a very good point. An agency request, even though they're paying for it, does not guarantee it'll be adopted.
Exactly.
Well, that's similar to a developer in a planning situation.
Exactly.
They may pay for an environmental review that proves it shouldn't be developed.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, any other questions? If not, we have...
I don't know if this is a question or not, but it somehow seems to me that once we start talking about money, we stop talking about best public policy somehow. And that to me is the big problem that I see in LAFCo meetings, is why are we here and what are we doing as a group? Are we trying to do the best public policy for all of the people and all the land use here, or are we jockeying for position about who's going to pay for what? And I understand that you have to worry about who's going to pay for what, but What's the most important thing?
Well, I would just say, I think that good public policy is made when you have good information. And in order to get good information, somebody generally has to pay for it.
Yeah, it's both. And I think it's a true statement for government in general that at this time when things are so tight, that there's this tightrope that you're walking to try to get the best information you possibly can for the least amount of money so you can make good policy decisions. And that's just where everybody's at. And so I don't think it's fair to say the blanket statement is we don't want to make good public policy. We care more. Yeah.
I don't think I said that.
But, you know, I mean, the bottom line is I think everybody wants good public policy. It requires good information. The good information is costly. How do you get it? And that dance takes place at the development level too. I mean, I'm watching as developers pay for studies, the citizens question whether the studies were, unbiased given the fact that the developer paid for them. So got to get the good information is the bottom line, and it costs money to do it.
Okay, well, I have a question. What we're being asked to do here is consider this resolution amending our CEQA guidelines regarding the payment of these costs. Now, we've just had new language clarifying this. So if, in order to take the action, we wouldn't be approving the resolution as in our packet. What we would be doing is approving it with the
revised
language. Yes, is that correct?
You can either, since I've read it to you verbatim, you can adopt it today, or you could choose to have us printed, revise the resolution, and bring it back at your next meeting.
Okay.
Whichever you're more comfortable with.
So that's what I need to do as chair, is ask the LAFCo, what do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any problem with approving the resolution and language. My concern would be any agency that has to answer the LAFCO if they would feel they did not get an opportunity to review it, amended language, if they would not have understood them. And I don't know if that would or would not be the case. I'd be ready to approve it, but if I was putting in to spring one or something, didn't get a chance to review that, I'd say, wait a minute, what happened here? And they're not, obviously, excuse me. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I think you make an excellent point. Perhaps we should bring it back, revised.
I think they should have every agency have the opportunity. Probably there'll be no comments, but there might be.
But at least it'll be something that they'll have a chance.
They'll have that opportunity, because Scott, I think it's very clear, concise. I like it. For me, it cleans it up, and I'm good with it. But I'm not the agency out there that's going to be affected by it.
Right. And I don't think there's any urgency to do this today. So if this is the consensus of LAFCO, then let's direct staff to bring this back with the new language.
Yeah, I really like its clarification a lot.
Okay, do you want to keep the public hearing open on this so that...
I would think we would have to, because let's say Bonanza Springs wants to they're not, but
Yes, if you keep it open, then we don't have to renotice the public.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, well, I think I said I closed the public hearing and brought it back, so then I will reopen the public hearing here today
and
continue this item to the September 17th meeting.
yeah. And in all probability, it will be done in 5 minutes then.
Would you like us to make sure the resolution is put on the website so that all districts can...
I think that's a great, then there's...
Would you also please put your new language in a special paragraph that says this is the actual proposed?
Yeah, we're going to actually just stick it in the resolution with the whole resolution on it.
But I'm asking you in a letter of transmitter or an email to these individual districts and groups, would you please state, this is the key change that we're proposing? So that, people are not going to read through this and try and find a paragraph that you changed. Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that it was sent to them to begin with.
Well, there you go.
We're not required to send it to anyone. There's no law that says we need to.
You have a
Do we
policy
want to
on
do that?
outreach and education.
I don't
You know
think
what,
we-
I'm not finding it really productive, Betsy, shouting from the back.
I'm sorry. Finding it really
Okay, well,
productive
we'll put it on our
behavior.
website.
Okay.
I like Betsy's idea that the new language be substituted so you all see the progression. At least the website example, the example you're going to sign is going to just have the new language.
Are we open again?
We are.
Okay, all right. I'm a little confused half the time on what we're doing, but Jim Steele again for the record. Just a question, a clarification when you come out with this. I'm concerned about who it is that actually is paying here. If an applicant comes in and says, I want to change the sphere of influence, and someone else asks for additional information, who pays for the additional information? Does someone else or the original applicant?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Through the CEQA process, of course, it allows anybody who wants to comment.
Correct. You're not referring to them from the standpoint of requests for additional information, or you are?
Well, no. What this is referring to is if we decide that we're doing the sphere of a district and our plan is to do this, and the district wants to do this, the difference, they have to pay for the cost of the review.
They're the applicant at that point, and
No, they're not
the applicant. Okay, so it's someone who's not the applicant is going to pay.
It's what I would call a real party in interest.
Yeah, and that's just, and you've looked at this. This has been done before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
That's new to me.
well, it's kind of saying if you want us to look at this, I mean, LAFCo could say, fine. If you don't want to pay for it, that's fine. We'll look at this. We won't look at this because to look at this requires us to pay an additional $20,000 in environmental review. We think for LAFCo reasons, we should only look at this. But if you really want us to look at that, you have to give us the resources to do that.
And that's a real party of interest to the application. Does that make them part of the application?
Well, they're always part of it.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
That's how they get there.
the district is always the principal player and the one we're
That's the
concerned
difference.
about.
I understand it now. I couldn't understand it before because usually the applicant is driven by all of the environmental review questions from the agencies, and then they pay. Because the oversight agency, with the discretion, says, yes, that's a valid thing to look at, and then you shall pay for that because they have the direct conduit. You've got to the real party of interest way of doing that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
It's unfortunately, it's just the way the statute is structured. It's a kind of very unique situation.
Thank you.
All right, we'll continue this hearing to the 17th of September. And moving on to item 8, this is the 2014 Biennial Conflict of Interest Code Review. John?
All right, this is required every 2 years that we amend our conflict, or we update or amend or not amend our conflict of interest. We do a biennial review. And what I've included here is the notice of the biennial review, and the action required would be is to authorize you to say that no amendments are needed because we do not have any changes in the staff or circumstances. So that would be the recommendation.
Okay. Any questions? Pretty simple one for a change.
But they have to do it.
I'll open this for public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No change. Okay, now, Betsy, get ready. We are going to have the Watershed Protection District Service Review Committee report. Well, there's going to be a public hearing on September 17th, but we are going to receive their report today, and we'll have from now till the 17th to read it over and review it and so forth. Give us time to digest it. And I'm sure Betsy will provide some verbal commentary today along with the written report.
Well, this is a really fun project. What I'm handing out here is our committee comments on the draft that you received at the last meeting. And that draft is available from the LAFCo website.
But we have these on our desk.
Yeah, we already have,
Oh,
actually,
you do?
we do, so if you want these copies for someone else.
Yeah. We should have told me it cost me $27 to do this.
We've already got it.
Really, I had no idea. Well, thank you. That's all right. We'll distribute these to the public.
Oh, didn't you have one on your desk?
I have it on my, yeah, I have it, but I don't.
Do y'all have this?
Didn't you have one on your desk?
Y'all have this CalLAFCO document? Y'all have that?
No.
We do.
No, you don't.
It's different, yeah.
No, we don't have that.
Okay, give me that one back.
Okay. Because that is, and the public has already received
So
it.
here, Betsy.
Okay, thanks. So this one-page overview of LAFCO and water management decisions is a really helpful document. It's from 2005 and talks about all the ways that the commission does have responsibilities and importance to you in terms of making decisions about other agency and district activities. Like, for example, letting all your districts know that you're considering a change of policy that might affect them. It's just a really polite thing to do, I think, before you make a change in policy. But your role in water resources management, your role in water management, these are very important to us. The Lake County Grand Jury report that just came out, they did a public works oversight, public works and special districts, all those kinds of things. Never once mentioned the watershed protection district. There's no connection. Never once mentioned the pollution prevention requirements of the State Lands Commission legislation in 1973. Never once mentioned the NPDES stormwater pollution prevention permit requirements, which is really the core of what the district's new services involve, that never was reorganized after the passage of SB 1136. So what we did is we went through the draft that you received, and we looked at individual sentences where we thought that the language would become clarified, and that's all this list is about. It's just a recommended change list. John and Mike and I met, and Maurice met on the 18th of June to go through the text and propose how we would give this information to you so that you could look at the draft you have and then these particular items. Include the city of Clear Lake. It didn't include the lower end of the lake. It didn't include the water monitoring that's now important to that permit requirement. And what I'm finding as a member of a CASCA subcommittee that's involved in statewide management of our new NPDES permit is that almost none of the legislative bodies that are directly responsible for implementing this permit have received education about what those duties of care are for managing your decision-making about spending for your districts. So in the case of the Watershed Protection District, the Board of Supervisors is the decision-making body, has not actually received any real comprehensive program information about what that entails. And we saw that as a consequence of the 2005 SB 1136 implementation. Kelly Cox mentioned this to me. It just kind of rolled over from the flood control to the watershed. And the legislation says now you have to implement this new permit program. All the phase 2, those are the rural permit holders in California, and I work with over 160 municipalities on this program. All of them are struggling with this. Phase 1 was the municipalities of larger cities. I just talked to the flood control district yesterday of the county of Riverside. They have 3 regional boards. They have 13 cities, 3 million people, and 8 tribes, and they all have a say on this NPDES permit issue for stormwater pollution. So all I'm suggesting is that we're really trying to make this a tool, not just for you, but also for the Board of Directors, the Board of Supervisors, the City Council members. The cities are co-permittees. They pay a very important share of the cost of complying with that permit.
And as Suzanne has mentioned in several other contexts, they're kind of left out. They're just not integrated into the concept of watershed and watershed protection and the drainage master plans, those kinds of things. So we'd really like to just give you this information. Thank you.
Wait, before you sit down, I have a clarifying question, and I'm going to spend some time with this, going into it in detail. The clarifying question I have is on item 8, where you made some recommendations to change the language to say that the advisory council, which then directs staff to make recommendations to the respective legislature for final approval. I don't think advisory councils anywhere direct staff. I think that has to come from the authority.
That's how our program works.
Well, it can't. I mean, it doesn't.
I'm asking you.
There's gonna, yeah, well,
I'm asking
you. Yeah, no, there's gonna, they can make recommendations to staff. They can make recommendations to the board, but they can't direct staff. Only the board can direct staff.
This is kind of a key issue about the statements that were included in the original MSR.
Anita Grant disagrees with you on this issue.
That's okay. Let her disagree by responding to the actual MSR, and let us please clarify how this advisory council with its elected officials has become the directive organization for spending authority for complying with the permit that the board of directors, the board of supervisors, the city councils do not know about.
Yeah, I don't think it requires a joint powers agreement that isn't in existence. It's not true.
Well, we have a joint powers agreement. We have a bylaw.
We can talk about this at the public hearing next week.
Sure.
We're going to be asked to go through every one of these, the commission, and bullet by bullet, is this acceptable in the MSR or not?
Yeah, give us all a chance to review this and then go into the details.
Yeah, and that's the only reason is that this course should take place then.
Well, just please know that that is a big missing chunk.
And these issues should be at the public hearing, I think. So in September, we'll go through all of this.
And
point by point.
Mr. Chair, Betsy, real quick, just with the
training program,
the format, italics are additions, and then of course anything crossed out is removed.
Anything crossed out is removed in the italics.
What about something that's underlined?
I don't know. That's probably because it's a hyperlink in the actual electronic version.
Okay.
That's what that is.
A link source document.
Mm-hmm. Did you get that?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Beth?
Yeah.
You want to offer the Marin training?
Go ahead.
Okay, Mike, you're on the committee.
Yeah, I'd be pleased.
Give us some edit.
No, this is actually related to something else. Betsy mentioned that, one of the findings of the committee was that there hadn't been any actual attempt at education of the directors of the Watershed Protection District, as an example. It sort of happened that they became that instead of flood control district. In the process of gathering information, we found that in Marin County, they put together a PowerPoint that does an absolutely excellent job of explaining what the role is. And we would be more than happy to present that to this body as well as the Watershed Protection District Board of Directors.
Well, that's good.
Something to consider.
Marin County has it.
It was done, we have it. It was done by Marin County, but it's an excellent.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Then we'll move along. Item 10 is consider a LAFCo Achievement Award nomination. Tell us about this, please.
Well, what I did was I gave you a handout of the categories for the Achievement Award nominations. I put it on the agenda so you can consider if you want to do one this year or not. I have no recommendations on this. That's up to you.
All right.
What sort of things end up getting nominated? these?
Large projects, some legislator that may have been of particular assistance to your LAFCo. Somebody that, well, there's, you
Like
can go
a
down.
major consolidation, like when we did the fire districts or something?
Right, something like that, the 4 districts and how, see, that would have been a candidate during that year. The consolidation of the 4 districts, a major annexation, somebody that's retiring, a commission that is considered the most effective commission. I don't understand the context on that. In some cases, an outstanding commissioner, somebody that went way beyond what they were supposed to do, a professional, project of the year, which could be an MSR, for example. A leadership award, that would be it.
I don't have anything for this year.
No, it's, I mean, for one thing, it presumes that you're going to go to see that. Certain strategy Cal LAFCo would have to give us there.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Although recognizing the executive officer or legal counsel.
Legal
I
counsel.
already was recognized.
He got it last year.
Thanks in part to you.
I'm trying to see if I have a thing with some examples of some of the categories that won.
That's okay. My question's answered. I understand. When are these due? Friday, August 22nd? So we have to decide today.
Right.
And then someone would have to take on basis.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is the way that John has begun meeting directly with the boards of the various agencies involved in these MSRs.
Yes.
Going beyond what's required.
Yeah, that is a tremendous outreach.
And it's really benefited everybody involved.
It'd be nice for John to win that when the conference is local, so we can all be there.
Oh, yeah, good
Maybe
point.
we should.
Where's the
be
conference?
strategic.
Let's wait until Sacramento the year after.
It's in
If
Ontario.
we do it the
Yeah.
year after and
That's not
do
gonna
it
happen.
with the other groups that you work with,
That's
then
good idea.
we'll be strategic and we'll all be there for you.
Good idea.
Excellent.
Good idea.
Cool.
That one's in our backyard.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to this one a lot.
I'm gonna go on.
Madam Chair-elect.
Oh, well, thank you.
I can tell you that.
Leadership and foresight.
You've ever been to Ontario?
Been there before.
Yeah.
I didn't-
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll open this to public input. Any public input on this? I didn't think so. Okay. Well, moving on. No action on that. Next is authorize commissioners and staff to attend the Cal LAFCo annual conference in Ontario. This is in October, middle of October.
So, who is going to go, or who wants to go?
Middle of October.
Middle of October.
I'm going to be there, so I hope some of you will go.
Well, it's a good training for anybody new. So,
It's true.
Yes.
I have a grandchild doing the 13th. I won't be
they
there.
won't be there. Okay, so.
Well, aren't we going to be down there the month before for, yeah.
You going anyway? You guys down there for something?
We're
in
down there
September,
for
League of
Bigger
Cities.
California Cities the month before.
They're doing it in Ontario this year, too?
Yeah.
But it's in September.
Yes, it's very close to the state up, and so it would make traveling just very rough to go back again.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought it was going to coincide. You should go to both.
I mean, Jerry Mills might be a candidate, right?
I mean, for me, it wouldn't really be appropriate because I'm only the alternate for the the city, which will change next year.
But still finding out about it doesn't matter.
Well, it's still,
You can find out
it's
what they find
education.
out, yeah.
It seems that
It is
Denise
appropriate for alternates.
Lucelot
Sure.
and Jerry Mills would be the two candidates. We'd have to ask them, the two candidates that would be benefit the most from this conference because they have LAFCo 101 and all the things that LAFCo might not know. And so it seems those would be the two that I would recommend. We
Jerry
offer
and
the
Jerry and who?
Jerry Mills and Denise Lucelot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They would be, and also maybe Jim.
Jim has gone to the last.
Yeah.
Okay, so those two haven't been, it's a training exercise, and they should be given the opportunity if they're available. That's my.
In our budget, how much did
We have about $3,500.
Hitchhiking to Ontario.
So that would cover the 2 years.
A portion.
Yeah, John splits his cost between the other laptops.
Just a portion. Yeah, just as a heads up, the year after is going to be in Sacramento, and that should be affordable and easy access.
That's time for us.
The year after that is going to be in Santa Barbara, and that is going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know.
Just to drive through Santa Barbara, you charge.
I was at LAFCo the other day, and it's going to be obscenely expensive, and so, I don't know about that.
Well, so I don't know if you're looking for, but.
I can approach them.
Yeah, approach them, and they obviously would be our voting members and alternate voting members. But we could do what we did before and give you the authorization to vote.
Okay, I would be the alternate voting member. Just, I want that official in the minutes because it becomes a sticking point with the candidate that may lose.
Right, okay.
That it's in the minutes that you authorize me to.
So you would want to make that as a motion then?
Yes, I would. So I move that we authorize two members of Lake LAFCo to attend, Denise Lucelot and Jerry Mills if they're available, and if they and that they would be the voting members, Denise and then Jerry, for our LAFCo. If either is not available, then I would be our alternate voting member.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
I guess I didn't do that, sorry. I shouldn't have.
Well, we just kind of combined
I
it.
combined them, I'm sorry.
It occurs to me that I skipped number 11. I jumped over it to item 12. Sorry about that. I'll go back to it. Nominations for the LAFCo Board of Directors. We want to consider any one of us to be nominated for the LAFCO Board of Directors.
It has to be a city or a public member or both, right?
Yes, this year it's a city or a public member.
Well,
And there's nobody here at Clear Lake. Of course, that doesn't mean we couldn't nominate
well,
them.
just keep in mind that if you're going to nominate somebody, they're going to go.
They got to be able to go.
They got to
Yeah,
go.
they have to
Exactly. Exactly.
So-
Right, and the two Lakeport members indicated
They're already going to be there 30 days before.
not in.
Yes, so
not-
they're,
okay.
so and I would say, having served on the LAFCO board is quite an education, and it's worthwhile, but it is, the big LAFCOs dominate pretty much the discussion of their issues. That's kind of my assessment.
Yeah,
But it's,
they changed the organization a little since you were on it, where they got the 4 areas.
that's right, so it was definitely
They
worth.
lost some clout.
They lost some clout because we were electing everybody from Northern California because we had the votes in
Right.
the counties.
So, and that was under discussion while I was on the board, how to reform those.
Right, so
areas.
they've been reformed.
It's good exercise, it's really valuable for those who are a part of it. But it's a commitment of time. I think it's like they meet once every couple of months or once a quarter.
Yeah, I think it's quarterly.
So it is, and it involves a trip.
Well, it's a public event, are you interested in?
You know, I've served on the LAFCo board also before, and everything Denise said is true. And as much as I enjoy this sort of thing, I'm starting to think about phasing myself out of this sort of stuff over the next few years. Hopefully by the time I'm 70. So I think
You'll just be a Roby citizen.
That's right. I think I'll pass. Thank you, though, for the thought.
Yeah, the only potential nominee based on everything we talked about would be Denise as a city member.
City, yeah.
Or,
Suzanne.
yeah, Denise is a city member.
I'm already 70, I'm not doing it.
Suzanne can, an alternate can run
do it.
and
Okay.
be elected to the
Are you interested?
LAFCO board.
No, okay, Suzanne's not.
You didn't even have to think about that one, did
I
you?
didn't.
That's easy.
70's the cutoff.
It's 4 meetings a
Enough
year,
of that.
it's travel, it's, you know, for a little county, it's kind of hard to support it. But maybe Denise is interested.
We should find out if Denise has interest.
Yeah, you'll be contacting her anyway.
Well,
about
you can
the-
nominate her based on her interest, I would assume. But I'm not sure if she's even going to go, so.
Yeah, so I guess I would nominate her contingent upon her being excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Well, okay, is that a second?
That's a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got that one out of the way.
That'll feature you on vacation.
Yeah. No vacation, we just throw another vacation. You're thrown under the bus in a
All
heartbeat.
expense paid trip to Ontario.
Whoopee. Okay, now, appoint a voting member and alternate, we did that. Executive officers report.
Okay, I'll just try to be brief, we're all kind of getting tired. Is the mini cannon annex, there was an annexation request for the Caleome County Water District. The county is going to approve I might add the word finally, approve this tax sharing resolution. Apparently that was lost when Kelly left, because Kelly used to do all those. And so anyway, I worked with Alan and Matt. They've got an item going on the board agenda, so that will be heard on September 17th. That school's annexation. As far as speaking of Caleome, I've met with a group of folks that are already receiving service. They are filing an application for LAFCo to annex some of them. They have some 50 out-of-district customers, and at this meeting, only 6 or 7 of them showed up. They were all invited, because the rest of them didn't have it, either they didn't have an interest or couldn't make it. And so out of those, I'm probably going to get 3 or 4 applications. One could be the Rancheria. I met with Sally, and then a couple other individuals in the area that are interested in annexing. So that is going to be forthcoming. There'll be an annexation. I don't know how many. The City of Clear Lake Service Review, I guess we're kind of on hold for its general plan. They had an EIR released, and I've provided some comments on the EIR as they relate to LAFCo specifically. This service review, fire service review, I want to get through some of this watershed stuff first. It's pretty much complete. There's a couple things that I need to just finish it up and set it up for a hearing. We'll probably look at another meeting other than September, unless you care to be here for an 8-hour meeting in September. But I think we can postpone that one. Groundwater management and water supply legislation. I went to a LAFCo Board of Directors meeting the other day. As you know, there's a couple bills going through. One, this Assembly bill, Assemblyman Dickinson is sponsoring, and there's another one that Senator
Fran
Pavley is doing SB 1168. What's happened is CSAC did a really good analysis of the comparison of these 2 bills. One of the bills, Dickinson's bill, is based on the water policy of Aqua. the Association of California Water Agencies. Podley's bill is based on the water analysis of, from the California Water Foundation. Both of them are very reputable. There's a pretty much 80% agreement already between these two bills. There's 20% that is, it looks like there could be an agreement very quickly. Governor Brown has his sustainable water strategy also. So that is going on. So what's happening in early August, these two bills are going to coalesce because now it's going to be a bipartisan bill on some groundwater legislation. The thrust is that the state has no interest in regulating groundwater, that they have a very much of an interest of having the locals regulate groundwater. You have to remember there are 515 water basins, quote unquote, in California, at least identified in Bulletin 118. And really the legislation as it's being morphed, and I don't know what the final outcome is going to be because I don't think anyone does at this point, that there's 127 basins that are critical that will probably be earmarked, and I'm not sure which ones these are at this point. So those have been identified to where there would be regulation. I don't know what form it would be. In one of the bills, it was that with LAFCo, you have to create a county-wide groundwater management agency in every county and approve it within 6 months. Okay, well, LAFCo wrote a letter, and there's some concerns about that, as well as several other things. What was interesting at Bulletin 118 is that they talked about all these watersheds, these principal watersheds, like we mentioned, Lake County has 3 main watersheds and a bunch of sub-watersheds. And I haven't really had time to verify this, but a lot of the other watersheds, the little sub-watersheds, are based on either political boundaries, roads, or streets, and not really the hydrology. So, you know, we always look at these things and take them literally. Well, then, I just thought that kind of came off the page when the legislative director for Assemblyman Dickinson said that. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So, anyway, there is going to be some legislation. These are all in the opposite house and committees right now, but expect some groundwater legislation to come out, good or bad, probably for the governor's signature this year. So that's my, you know, forecast.
I'd like to add just a quick comment on this for all of us, especially those younger than me, who are still going to be involved in this thing for years to come. We talked earlier about how good policies are made when you have good information to base them on. And when you're talking about water, you know, the old Mark Twain quote, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting over. The state wants to dump the responsibility for watershed, groundwater basin management on us locals. If we're going to do a good job at that, we need good information. And what that means is that you monitor the wells in certain areas in the springtime after the rains stop, when the water basin's high, and you measure them again in the late fall before the rains start, when they're at their lowest.
March and October.
Yeah, March and October. And that's a good thing. Now, it's my understanding that under state law, well records are confidential. They're not public information. So those of us who are going to be in the business of developing the management of these groundwater basins needs to figure out how to set up an effective monitoring program and how to pay for it in these various groundwater basins. That's all I want to say.
Every farmer in existence is going to I can guarantee it.
Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Problem. Yeah.
But Mr. Chair, may I please add some comments on that particular issue?
If you wouldn't mind coming up here.
No, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Thank you. As a matter of fact, the issue of local groundwater was addressed by the Lake County Watershed Protection District Water Inventory and Analysis Project in 2005.
and they produced the Lake County Groundwater Management Plan, which in a recent hearing with the state's Integrated Regional Water Management Prop 84 project local director, Mr. DeLeon, admitted that we do not do groundwater management. We do monitoring, but not management. Management involves when a permit is issued, that it's required that you show how much water you're going to take and from what groundwater basin. And so as John has said many, many years in a row, we don't actually have a safe yield analysis that determines whether your new use is going to impair a groundwater basin. And that's a very serious problem we have with our groundwater management program. In addition, we have a very old groundwater management ordinance, and I think, Ed, you were involved in that because it had to do with the exportation of groundwater.
It's the export.
Out of Lake County. But that's all it governs, and it does not then direct the planning process to consider it. One of the limitations we have here is that we're below the population threshold of SB 610 and SB 220, which were the laws that said if you have a certain number of, I think it's 3,000 users in a water system, you have to do an urban water management plan. Well, we don't have that because we have all these little teeny weeny groups of water users, but they're not aggregated in such a way that there has to be a supply analysis. And so these are really, really key issues for us, especially because our groundwater basins, 3 of which are impaired as of 1987, with 3 groundwater basins with subsidence. We have all these new vineyards going in. We have huge amounts of water being extracted, and I mean huge. And then we have the lake conditions. So if the lake conditions become imperiled with toxins, what is our backup? It's that groundwater. So, this is really important for us to really get a handle on.
And that just reinforces.
One of the issues that she's bringing up, we need to have this on one of the agendas. Not, we need to do that MSR thing, but we also need to have some time dedicated to water and groundwater and all of the schedules.
And that's why I want you this LAFCo thing, because it's really your guideline.
Well, we'll make a note to put that up on a future agenda.
A future agenda, yeah.
November or after the first
At least,
of the year.
we a little bit know what the legislature is going to do, so at least we can react.
I mean, this thing's coming. Then the main thing is, it's coming, it looks like it's going to land on us, and it's a big deal.
I guess the quote of the day is let no crisis go unanswered.
Okay. I'll make a comment about that. There's an ongoing issue that you're well aware of, and it's in Napa County, but in fact,
Oh, yes. I know it's
Same for Tangling Creek, Montesol.
Yes.
That Tangling Creek people are up in arms. Last year, the permit, I was told, in a drought you can't take any water. That's not true. I got a copy of the permit. It's a 3-year drought plan. First year, you take 66% of the permitted amount. Second year, 66% of the first year and on down. And people last year said they're taking enormous amounts of water. Well, they had taken 1.9% of the third-year drought. They really didn't take any. But every truck that comes out of there, they're ready to shoot it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember.
The facts speak differently, and who knows where all the water's going. It's a deal.
This was a deal where the permit was being issued in Napa County. Because it's just over the line.
It's like 500 yards over the line.
I got wind of this at the last minute, and it was a candidates forum in Middletown. I was running for supervisor, and I drove to Napa and appeared before the Napa Planning Commission, and I just popped up like a mushroom. And when I told them, I said, hey, we got serious issues here, and they actually listened to me and made some changes.
They did?
And I was late to the forum, but I got back just in time.
The permit's very specific on what the can and can't take.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Excuse me, I have to leave.
Scott has an emergency.
My fault.
Hey, the one last thing I want to talk about is the LAFCo clerk. I'm really getting desperate. I do have an opportunity to offer a couple other LAFCo clerks if they would like to part-time LAFCo clerks and other LAFCos to see if maybe I can find one to come up and help out. But I just know that this is not sustainable, me doing this clerking stuff and trying to actually talk and focus at the meetings. So if you know of anybody that's interested in a part-time job, please let me know. And just talk around. That goes for all of you. Betsy?
I'm sorry?
You're too active in this, and you can't do it either.
What requirements?
Yeah, I'm too involved.
I need somebody that's able to take minutes and focus, and I'll instruct them on what type of minutes to take. They don't need to be anybody that's totally knowledgeable of the Brown Act. That's why Scott's here.
Right.
And I don't need it at the level of like a city clerk. Or if there's a part-timer at any of the cities or the county that you know of that I think she can work out and can speak English, and that's all I care about.
Okay. And you need it as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, okay.
We'll send you names.
You consider contacting the Employment Development Department, it's right across the street.
It's right here, yeah. And they probably have people already.
And they have jobs for seniors through a senior program that's subsidized.
Okay. Oh, subsidized.
Yeah. And that's exactly the kind of person you want.
Yeah, okay. Next item up is commissioner reports. Anybody have anything to report?
I have said no.
Me too.
Me too.
Correspondence. Do we have anything on this, John?
CSDA conferences in Palm Springs this year. That's the one thing that came in, and I don't have anything else.
Okay. And I will adjourn the meeting to our next meeting in September 17th in the city of Clear Lake. Council. Thank you all for putting up with me.